Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wisdom Exchange number 17. And we're going to talk about how does meditation work? Because people a lot of talk about a lot. You should do meditation, or meditation is good for you. But if you're logical like me, how does it work? Why is it good for me? What even is meditation? So if you're a scientist, if you're logical, I'm going to try to cover all that for you. And also at the end, show you how you can use your own personality and understand it, and also use meditation to understand your personality deeper as well. So let us start with going back to the beginning. So, thousands of years ago, people in India, in ancient Greeks, they contemplated, even like in ancient shamans in North America, they all had these sort of meditative, deep practices, right? And why did they have these in the first place? Well, they understood that it was important to understand not just the outside world, but the inside world, because everything we do, we think, we feel is how we interact with the outside world, right? So it's worthwhile knowing what is going on here, so then you can start to interact in the outside world in a fruitful way. And also, so you really know that what you're seeing in the outside world is a clear image and you're not having too many filters in the way. So let's start. I've did a nice diagram. I hope you like my drawings. Let's start with the beta wave. So if you're familiar with science, you know that the beta wavelength in psychology is a more fast moving wavelength. And so this is in the conscious state when we're doing things in the world, when we're having conversations, we're doing the tasks. Maybe if you're doing your cooking, you're going to have the beta wavelength. And so that is when we're really energized, when we're really engaged in the outside world. And so you can see there's a little man there or a lady. That's you. So you're in that beta wavelength. That's an eye. And this is everything that's behind the eye, right? This is everything that's inside here. Your own psyche, your own universe. And everything out here is the external universe, right? And so as we go deeper from beta, all the way down, we're going to really the subconscious. And we'll get into that. Before I jump into that, because that's what we're looking into today and what I'm excited about, let's look at the heart and logic, or emotions and thinking. So, as you'll know, this is very crude, but as you know, that everybody has emotions, they have thoughts. Some people are a bit emotional than others. Some people are more logical than others. Everybody embodies a bit of both. If you're familiar with the Myers Briggs system, you'll be aware that some people prioritize certain things more than others. If you're familiar with stereotypes between cultures, between genders, etc., you'll be familiar with what gender or what culture, what stereotype prefers logic over emotion, right? I don't have to tell you that. So, this kind of pattern is sometimes where we get stuck in, right? I feel like this, I'm thinking like this, or I can't escape my feelings, or can't escape my thoughts. That's where this comes in, this little diamond, if you can see that. This little diamond is attention. So I've listened to a quite good podcast on Dr. Chatterjee, and there was a guest where your attention can actually zoom in and zoom out and have that awareness, right? And so we can actually choose our attention. If you looked at Wisdom Exchange 11 and you've done the IFS exercise, we can make our attention move into our emotion. How does that anxiety feel? How does that anger feel? What emotions are coming, and you can, and music does this as well, because if you're familiar with the rag system from like the Sikh tradition or Indian culture or any even Mozart or Beethoven's music, it takes your attention into an emotional plane. So whether that be a rag of happiness or compassion or devotion or energy, right? Like you go to the gym, it takes your attention into the motion and takes you emotionally to a place. Logic, your attention, obviously, when you're working, if you're an engineer like me, you got to place your attention into your thought patterns. You got to apply it into logic. You got to solve, if you're doing mathematics, you got to apply your attention mathematically. If you're a manager or you're a director, you've got to apply your attention to a strategic level. And maybe you've got to take out some emotions at some level, or you've got to do a balance and factor them in. But again, it all comes down to how attentive are you. So you'll find that very successful CEOs and directors are not just focused on the logic, but they're able to have a degree of separation between their attention and their logic. So we're getting to the meditation, don't worry. But this is just to give you a bit of background about how the attention, how the logic, how the emotions can play out in your life, right? And if you're familiar again with the Myers Briggs system, you'll find out that, for example, ISFPs, ESFPs, INFPs, um, yeah, and another one, I forget which one, the top two dominant function is introverted feeling, which means they prioritize their mental process, prioritize how they are feeling, right? Whereas people like ENFJs, INFJs, ESFJs, ISFJs, as their top two, one of the top two dominant functions, will have extroverted feeling. So how is the tribe? How is the group feeling, right? And so they'll be in the emotional world, but they might be in slightly different emotional worlds, right? Not to say that they can't use logic, but they're just in the bottom subset. Whereas people like INTJs, ENTJs, ESTJs, ISTJs will prioritize extroverted feeling as their function. If you're confused what I'm talking about, go back to Power of Personality live stream where I go through the cognitive functions, and you can do the personality package. I'll put it in the description as well. You can do that and find out which personality type you are. But they will prioritize extroverted thinking, which is the structures, which is the processes in the outside world, which they might follow. And they will prioritize this compared to any emotional systems. I say prioritize, doesn't mean they don't have it. And then again, for example, introverted thinking. So classic examples like INTPs, right? Not necessarily an external logical system, but they might develop an internal logical framework, right? That they're talking from. I might be using internal introverted thinking right now as one of my fourth functions, developing a framework in my mind that I'm trying to tell you rather than following a set structure. So you can see how the attention works and how one, depending what personality type you are, you might be kind of lost in what other people think about you, lost in what you think about the world and your own fantasies, lost in how to make structures efficient and how to make life efficient, or just lost in your own philosophical ideas about the world, right? So these are very crude examples, but you can see how these can play out, right, in your life. And let's get a bit more complicated. If your attention is being drawn into one of these, I can give you an example like your thoughts can influence your emotions, or your emotions can influence your thoughts, right? So not necessarily one is in front of the other, just depending what type of person you are. So if I say to you, "Oh, think of the recent funeral you've been to," that's a thought. But then the emotions can come up, grief, sadness, right? So basically, this, I give you a thought and it's now influencing emotion. Your attention has gone to your thought and that's produced an emotion. Or if I said, "Oh, think about a time," right, that you felt super happy, super relaxed, super connected to your loved one, right? I'm not giving you a thought, I'm giving you an emotion, but that's going to be driving a thought. So think how companies do this, think of advertisements doing this, and think about how I can influence your emotions and thoughts, but also how the attention plays into this, right? And now you might be lost in that memory, but now let's see. Can you then notice yourself? Can you notice that thought within you making that emotion? Can you notice that emotion within you making that thought? So we've covered that quite a bit in depth. We've gone through personality, we've gone through different types of emotions and logic, how they can be used in life. Let's delve a bit deeper into this attentive state. So you'll know left hemisphere, right hemisphere, we talked about that in the past. One is more holistic, one is a bit more narrow, one is more intuitive, and one is a bit more logical. With regards to the attention now, going a bit deeper, we can have our attention open and observe these thoughts and emotions, or we can have it super focused on the thought and emotion at hand. But sometimes when we do a task, we can hang back a bit, do the task, whether it be an emotion or logic task, but also have a degree of attention and cultivate our attention and cultivate our focus. So if you go to Wisdom Exchange number 11, the way I did the meditation was in the IFS style, internal family systems. And so we were meeting emotions, we were meeting thoughts, but we were doing it consciously. So we were using our attention to meet these parts, not just being sucked up. And then if we go to that deeper state now, we're going to the observer. So now you're observing your attention. So if you go to Wisdom Exchange 11 and remember at the end, I said something like sit in your attention or sit within yourself. You're now trying to observe your attention. You're not just trying to observe your emotions and your logic, but you're trying to observe the attention that is looking at the emotion and logic. So it's kind of a step behind the attention as well. And that's what a lot of philosophy is called the self. So before I talk about the nature of that, let's just talk about why is this important? Because now you can see if we've created a gap here, and we're able to consciously see what emotions and thought processes. Now we can see what cultural influence is occurring on us and what effect this is having. How are we viewing this man? How are we viewing his race? How are we viewing his economic status? How are we viewing the way he dresses, the way he looks? Is this conscious or unconscious? And the way to make it conscious is to operate at this level. So we know the patterns at play. We know what is being prioritized in our minds, right? And I'll talk about the end about specifically how you can understand your patterns with your personality. So that's why it's important. Why we want to understand the outside world. You know, we don't want to go about life repeating the same patterns and not really knowing how we are interacting with the outside world. So now we've got to the observer state. If we're listening, just do this now. Close your eyes. Put your attention on the sounds closest to you. Could be your breath, could be your heartbeat. Not identifying with any sounds, but just noticing the sound. So, like outside your attention field, noticing that sound. Noticing how your attention is relating to the sound. And then noticing the observer behind your attention. Right? You can open your eyes now. So meditation's like that. It goes to that deeper level. And that deeper level is what we call theta. So you can Google it, science of meditation. You can Google beta waves. You can Google theta waves if you want to go more in depth. There's a good podcast in Dr. Chatterjee, Feel Better, Live More, about a guy who talks about how TV puts you in a certain wavelength a meditation puts you in a wavelength. They put monks under MRI scanner, etc. So if you're interested, you can look at that. But I'm going to just talk about the theta wavelength and how this is important to go to that level of relaxation and to really get to that observation of the scripts in your mind, right? So really at a deep level, like I'm not good enough, or um, like the fundamental beliefs, or I need to do this in my life because blah 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 blah. And so when we get to the observer level, it's the same as the subconscious level. So it's the same mechanism that we do in coaching, that level 3, where if you looked at my most recent video on my YouTube channel, it's all about, oops, don't know why that just locked. Am I still live? Yes. Okay. So, sorry, my computer just locked there. But if you looked at the most recent YouTube video on my YouTube channel, this third level was all about going to the why, is going to the deeper belief systems. And if you are in a dream state, if you follow Carl Jung, you'll understand when you're in a dream state, and you'll find it's like a movie, right? It's like a mythology happening when you're in a dream state. This is actually the theta level. This is actually the subconscious level. So when you're in the dream state, when you're in the meditative state, that is the level that you can actually start. Or if you're in therapy or coaching and you're in that state, that is that vulnerable but deep level that you can start to achieve transformation. And why, again, do we want to do this? Because every argument you've had, every life decision you've had, every judgment you've had, and every judgment you'll make in the future, and every choice you'll make in the future will be determined unconsciously or consciously by the level of detachment and separation you have, and the level of understanding you have of yourself and of the world. And the way we understand the world better, the way we understand ourselves better, is by going deeper to these states, by therapy, by coaching, by meditation, by maybe dream analysis as well, by figuring out what the subconscious is really operating like. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you want to look into it, you can look into subconscious and Carl Jung and read about that. So that's what I wanted to explain about the difference between beta wavelength. Sometimes you'll feel like you're in a state watching the TV and you're not very attentive, or you're focused on the task outside and so focused, or you're so angry, or you're so caught up. You can't see past this, right? But being super meditative, being super in that zone, you can have a level of detachment, you can control your attention, you can see all the patterns, and you can start to see the outside world in different ways. You can start to really overcome fear and start to overcome a lot of things as well. So I'll leave it there, everybody. That was how meditation works, the mechanism behind that, behind your thoughts and emotion and logic. Hope you find that super useful. Again, if you want to do the meditation, Wisdom Exchange number 11. So I'll just leave you today on, if you want to understand your patterns, because every human have different patterns. You'll notice the way I'm talking might be similar to some humans. The way you talk might be similar to some humans. Personality is a spectrum, and this is really our personal reality. How do we use these logic and emotions in different ways? How do we relate to them in different ways? If you want to understand how you as a human use your personal reality, how you use your logic and emotions in different ways, I'm going to leave my free personality package below. 4 or 5 personality tests for free. You can do at your own pace. You can go through them, really understand like the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, Via 7, Big Five personality. Understand your personality, how that works in depth, and then just being able to be more conscious about that, so you can leverage your strengths and how you turn up an emotion in a relationship, and also view other people in a different way as well. And that's all for free. If you want to talk a bit more about your results, you can just reach out to me on Instagram, or feel free to leave your results in the YouTube comments section below. So that is it for today. How does meditation work? 20 minutes. We're getting better. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Have a fantastic day ahead, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.